Dear Red Bull, this video is an open letter to Red Bull. When I say you, I'm talking directly to Red Bull rather than you, the audience. Audience, I know your sound. Red Bull, this is the bit that you might want to listen to. This open letter video took a little bit of a while to put together just because I was trying to get my thoughts in order, get all of the information in the right sort of shape and structure to convey the message that I intended to. First up, you've invested. Thank you. Much appreciated. It's always nice having a little bit more cash in the football club. Helps us to push towards success. But I don't think that you know what you are in for. And I'll be honest, I don't know where this road ends. At the moment, it's apparently just an investment without a road to full-blown ownership of the club. But if it does end up with full-blown ownership of the club, I feel like I know some of the stops along the way. So, let me tell you a little bit more, but first I'm going to tell you a little bit more about your history and importantly, the history of other football clubs that have been in this very same place. Red Bull was the first step. Red Bull Salzburg, specifically, was the first step back in 2005, in which Red Bull, you took SC Austria Salzburg, basically stripped the club of its identity, and you built from there. You pretended that the entire history leading up to that point hadn't existed, and from that point forwards, it was a club that had been formed by Red Bull and was Red Bull throughout its entire history. Which was a shame, to be honest. SC Austria Salzburg had an extended history of playing in European competition, and that was ripped away from them. Next up came RB Leipzig. Sure, technically, that club was formed because SSV Markranstadt was a club that you bought the license of, which, I'll be honest, was a little bit iffy because while Markranstadt are a smaller football club, they are still a football club with fans that appreciated the history. And RB Leipzig bought the license to run the football club and completely rebranded everything. Yes, you didn't call it Red Bull, but there's Red Bull sponsorship, there's Red Bull branding, and there's an RB at the start of the name. And then you went across continents. You left the whole Central Europe region and decided to have a cheeky look at Brazil with Red Bull Bragantino. It was a club that was founded 96 years ago, and it was down in the 4th division when you arrived. So not doing too well. But apparently the side's financial ability and heavy analytical recruitment proved key. This is me taking something from a actual source. I've done some journalism here on what they believe was the key to success. And sure, that financial ability and heavy analytical recruitment have helped all of the clubs in Europe, have helped New York Red Bulls, and have helped Red Bull Bragantino. Fantastic. Well done. But at the same time, other quotes from the article include the fact that the club had lost its true identity, and giving up the badge for a Red Bull branded one meant Bragantino effectively did not exist. These were just two quotes that I've taken from an article that had many, many, many more quotes. So not the best. And I'll be honest, there is a pattern here. And that's a pattern that you, Red Bull, have to start refuting. Have to prove isn't going to be the case with Leeds United. Because at the end of the day, it is a question of trust. Because Leeds United have had a bad time with ownership and chairman. First up, we have Peter Ridsdale, who repeatedly gambled financially, and that led to the absolute ruin of the club to the point that we're quite lucky that we have a football club to this day. Following Ridsdale was Ken Bates, who actively held the club down and sold players like Fabian Delph, who was a young superstar for Leeds, and the money didn't get reinvested back in the squad. The money was eventually, God knows where. I think it paid for the East End, maybe, I'm not 100% sure. But he actively held the club down as much as he possibly could, and yeah, we got promoted from League One, but he had very little to do with it. And the next owner was GFH Capital, who were absolutely clueless. If I remember right, this was the era in which the club basically started asking podcasts who we should sign, which is incredibly daft and very silly. And they basically just saw the club as a financial opportunity. And next up was someone who seemingly wanted to use the club as a bit of a toy, Massimo Cellino. He was a deeply unserious man with apparent substance issues, and the rot continued to the point when the ownership after him came in The swimming pool at the training ground was completely drained. We didn't have a women's football team, and the youth academy was just dead. Gone. Radrazani followed Cellino. He tried his best, but he absolutely didn't know his limits. He stayed too long, and that meant that the collapse continued to happen. We were looking a little bit iffy for the second season under Radrazani in the Premier League, and then he didn't sell to the 49ers, and his lack of financial oomph in that third season saw us get relegated. For the 49ers Enterprises, it is still very early days. We can't draw any judgments yet, but you, Red Bull, can understand our mistrust. Because we have had bad experiences with bad owners that have tried to do things with this football club that have just not worked. And this mistrust is so fundamental, it has become part of the club's culture. And I know you might not know too much about those two terms, club culture, so I'll run you through the culture of Leeds United now. First up, the culture of Leeds United is one of the most iconic in British football. We're a one-club city, which means that there is one genuine, viable football club in this city. So compare it to London, that's got about a dozen, Manchester, that's at least two. You can technically count Salford, Birmingham, that's got plenty. Football fans in this city will support Leeds United. And that means that the culture has become deeply, deeply rooted. With the club song, Marching On Together. Plenty of other club songs sung on every single match day. Ageless rivalries like against Manchester United, which is based on the War of the Roses, against Chelsea, which is driven by the fact that in, I think it was the 60s, there were a lot of incredibly vicious, violent matches between the two sides. And countless local rivalries and countless clubs that see us as their rival because they want to be our rival. And that is a fundamental part of the club country. Club culture. And it includes even a hatred of the word red. The concept. I had to look down at this jumper before I put it on and think, does it count as red? First up, I think this is maroon enough, but also it's very blue and it's got a bit of grey. I think you can let me off. But that strong, sturdy club culture is something that you, Red Bull, need to pay attention to because it is very, very telling to me. And there are two very important messages for you that if you've done your research and if you've paid attention to that club song I mentioned a minute ago, Marching On Together, there are two distinct lines that you need to have listened to here. First up, we've been through it all together. Time and time and time again, Leeds will always unite against poor ownership, against someone that doesn't have the club's best interest at heart, against someone that will cause us irreparable damage down the line. Yeah, sure, throughout a season we might disagree on things like the role of Daniel Farke, like the players that we need in the side, like how well the team is playing, like who we need to sell and who we need to buy. Those disagreements, fine, but they are relatively petty compared to when the Leeds fan base unites and marches against bad ownership. And the other message is that we've had our ups and downs. And the important thing for any owner to understand is that you need to help us achieve the ups, and you need to not be the cause of the downs. Too many times has an owner been responsible for a downswing in Leeds United's history. And yeah, things have been improving recently, but that's never permanent. Unless, of course, we're to get a good owner in the future. Even now, we don't know what the 49ers Enterprises are like. Even you, if you do decide to long-term take over the club. And good ownership can be part of those ups. But if you cause the downs, that's when Leeds United will ultimately unite against an ownership. And it is deeply, deeply hard to trust you, Red Bull, although I will absolutely do my best to, because people that watch this channel will know I'm an optimist, will know that I absolutely love supporting Leeds United, and it's always better to support a club in a happy, positive way. But if you, Red Bull, betray that trust, I trust the fans to stop you. I trust general government legislation to stop you. And before that even needs to happen, I trust common sense to stop you. Because it would be very, very stupid to try anything like RB Leeds, Red Bull Leeds. It wouldn't work for you. Wouldn't work for us. And I'm absolutely convinced that at the end of the day, you would leave that situation without a football club. We wouldn't. Hell, if it comes to it, we'll form our own. There's more of us than there are of you. But whilst I do trust Red Bull, this is just a warning. Don't push it. It'll be fine, but don't push it. If you're a non-Red Bull viewer, or if you are Red Bull even, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be massively appreciated. Comment what your thoughts are on the entire thing, and drop a like. That'd be fantastic. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you later. If you do have something to do with Red Bull and you're watching this, pop on the channel. Have a chat. My email's in the channel about section. Pop on. See you later.